Hi. Zuleima back on.
I'm Jyssika.
This is Group Zion I, week 3 discussion.
So week 3 was about truth seekers and truth tellers. And we talked about hip hop culture and American culture. And we kind of started off by talking about ghettoization in the Bronx and territorial rivalries. And went back to that part of 1973 where there were about 19,000 members of gangs in the Bronx. And we talked about that. We talked about the 4 aspects of hip hop culture by KRS-One. There was the MC, the graffiti, the DJ, and the B-boy and the B-girl. So we kind of started off with that.
So the reading, the fair reading of Putting Up Your Oppressed, kind of touched a bit upon culture. In relation to what we're talking about in class, it was more about how do MCs critique culture in relation, obviously, with the text. And pretty much, I feel like there's like an overarching theme that I'm seeing throughout this whole class. It's just like, searching for freedom, in different aspects of your life, whether it be freedom from culture, freedom from the government, freedom from any kind of oppression, where it comes in.
Like, definitely talking about how knowledge can enable you to overcome your struggles, and it's very important to have knowledge. And we listened to a couple songs in part 1, which was for MC as the Witness. So we listened to Fourth Branch by Immortal Technique. And
it's just upon a lot of different topics, critiquing a lot of things,
right.
Including racism, religion, government. It had a very accusatory kind of tone to it, I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was weird how when we were talking about freedom in class, but this is just Witness is like a freaking power.
Yeah.
I really liked this song. I really enjoyed actually this whole act kind of. I definitely enjoyed this song. I really liked it. It was extremely critical, it is very accusatory, but at the same time, it's telling us what Immortal Technique has witnessed and his opinion on it, and the struggles that he's gone through because of the racism, the prison system, Israel-Palestine, corporate America, all these different aspects that were in that song. I thought it was really cool. Like every single line was definitely the killer in that song.
Yeah.
And it's just like the struggles of his oppression, and then he kind of he becomes the oppressor himself, and then the result is ignorance.
Right, and he does talk about the different types of oppression, which is just like a couple of the ones that we mentioned. And he's critical of those who are oppressed, which kind of does tie into what you were saying. Like, he does kind of become a sub-oppressor, if that makes sense, because he's so critical of those who are being oppressed. But he is just being a witness to, the system and its downfalls. And just he kind of focuses on ignorance, but I feel like he's focusing more on ignorance of the oppressors in this song, because he's talking about the government, he's talking about the military, he's talking about things that are happening in media and stuff like that, not so much about those of the same class as him who are being oppressed. I think he's being more of a witness rather than Sorry.
I found this song really easy to relate to for it. For example, if we look at verse 2, towards the middle of it, when it starts in media censorship, walking with British means, all the way until and the world doesn't believe that you're fighting for freedom. I found it connects really well with her, just because he's talking about how these people are starving, and the average citizen may take you blind to reason, these people are trying to stand up, and that's what we're saying, that if you want any kind of change in your government, you have to stand up and you have to fight against the oppressed without trying to become the oppressor yourself. And that's kind of what he's trying to say here. Is these people need to kind of fight against democracy. That's just a word. You know, people are starting with democracy and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Ooh, I like that song. That was my favorite one.
Oh yeah, I really like this too. So in the first verse, he talks about a young man who enters the military and then he dies. And I really like that song because he talks about the fact that those who are oppressed or like marginalized have to take such dangerous risks in order to even have the possibility of making it to the places where other people are making it. Those who are more privileged. I really like that. And then in the second verse, he talks about a man who gets, I think, was it AIDS?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was AIDS.
And then in the third, he talks about what it's like to like be in the gang, but to live in a society like that.
This one actually, I don't know if you guys ever seen the movie Born for Columbine, maybe? Well, in that movie, it's a Michael Moore documentary, and Michael Moore talks about, or he mentions this part about army recruiters and how they, he takes two parts of the city, a really nice part of the city, a really nice mall, and like a worse part of the city, and like a worse mall. And he's talking about how army recruiters only ever go to the worst mall, and because that's where all like the lower income people are, you know, and then they just recruit straight from there. And I just think that's really interesting because, like, there's a pointed reason as to why they're there, you know?
Yeah.
I remember at my high school, we have recruiters all the time, you know, trying to, Army's a great option, blah, 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 college, but the same way there's something around the song. And it would always piss me off. And because they're preying on, like, this little weak, you know, the poor, and it's really unfair. And also, you can kind of relate it back to prayer with oppressing people. That's an oppression of the small, like glimpse of hope, probably, and then kind of taking it away because they're probably they might not even survive. But we are, still at war. Even supposedly we're not. We're still there.
Absolutely, yeah. And it kind of does tie back to like the part of last week where we talked about your choices might not always be in your best interest. Just like how he talks about he felt like he had to go into the military just to have a chance. And so your choices do sometimes put you in danger, but sometimes it's the only choice that you have in order to have a chance. And it talks about that poverty isn't just a struggle, but it can also be dangerous to you, and in multiple ways. Through military violence, through street violence, and the burden of the social expectations in that, and who society wants you to be. Like society wants him to be successful, but the only way he felt like he could accomplish that was to go through the military, which ended up getting him killed. Sorry, I still okay.
Another thing I kind of saw with this song is I'm seeing this again throughout the whole class. The first reading we did from you, it's kind of tied in with just everything. The absurd world. This is kind of the same thing. Like there's kind of no end to poverty. It's kind of what I was looking at, and so it's like you're never going to like get out of poverty. So like, you're never gonna find that clarity to go back home again. Like I just keep seeing that over and over in all these songs that we're listening to. It's cool.
Everything was beautiful inside of everything.
So yeah, with society is that's where I also think yeah, exactly. It kind of just sets like I can what I was saying. It sets like the standard for what you need to do, and then if you don't fall into that standard, then you're in for a lot of world of hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there was Trail of Lies by Jetta and Raintrix. Kind of talks about, again, he's a witness, talks about, again, the military and the pressures that young people face to join the military, and so I think it's really interesting that that's kind of like a concept that is in both of these songs. I didn't realize that was so much of a, I I don't know, I just didn't realize that was so prevalent in marginalized communities that they felt like they needed to join the military. I understand why, totally understand why, I just didn't even realize that was, something that they had to deal with. And then he's also very critical of the pharmaceutical companies, and then young girls who, with the media, try to, and they're really self-conscious about their image and stuff like that. And then he talks about trusting the police. He talks about he watches celebrities get used and discarded. So yeah, I actually think that song was really interesting, and I thought those two songs went together really well too.
I think these two songs related back to, like I said, that mode. It's a new standard.
I'm seeing a lot of big facing people. For example, like pharmaceutical company. I think another like 50 you guys already said the media, use the celebrities, the pressure to violence from verse 2. They show you the ads for the millions when they decide it's time. Natural feelings of a child is traumatized. So it's like he's saying naturally children are supposed to be, like traumatized, but then still as children, when they're 18, when they're eligible to go into the military, like they're trying to push them to go into war and to defend their country and stuff, and it's just like pressure for violence. Really thing.
And then she kind of talked about oppressors and their power of naming. Oppressors fail to recognize that privilege does exist, and that it damages those that are oppressed. And then I feel like it was kind of a cycle, even though she didn't use that term. It's like a cycle of not knowing what they're doing and at the same time wanting to stay in power, even though they kind of don't realize that they're in power. And then there's that naming power that no matter what, they always have that power over you to be able to, name you as something or call you lazy or call you whatever. And they think that, because they're in power, that means that you're jealous of them. And at the same time, that's not necessarily true, but at the same time, it's interesting because that can be very true, along with that concept of sub-oppressors, where we talk about how, sub-oppressors are often wanting to be, or kind of idolizing the way that the oppressors are, or their culture, or things about them. I definitely think that's interesting. The concept of sub-oppressors, and I can see that in society a lot of times too.
And then for an income again, like, say that with the military again, people usually in poverty go into the war. And I found it really weird. I don't know if you ever heard of Abu Ghraib. It's like a technique they used to use where, I guess, for so-called, what do they call them? Like the sergeants, I guess, teach their crews or whatever, the troops, whatever, that they have to dehumanize another person in order to have power to like see them as nothing, so it'll be easier for them to kill.
Yeah,
so I'm just like, I find that really interesting. I related back to this.
Yeah, the
trailblaze.
Yeah, it's dehumanism. The privilege is dehumanism. That's a really good connection.
Yeah, that was interesting.
My rabbi got into that and was like looking at this like, wow. That's really interesting.
She was talking about dehumanization.
I like the point that she made about she was in the beginning about power being an unalienable right, because that's kind of just where everything stems from. If you think it's an unalienable right, that's something you're entitled to, then you're just gonna keep oppressing. And then that's where all the things about how they're just jealous, how that comes in, how it's they feel the recognition of their privilege. They just think they work hard. It kind of, I don't know why, it kind of reminds me of the Protestant work ethic. That if you work hard enough, you'll get to where you want to get, and you deserve like better kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how I just did that, but I really did it to feel really good. So
yeah.
Just completely. Yeah.
And then, like I said, she took it in humanization. The fact that if those who are oppressed are given they're treated as humans or equal humans, then that threatens the oppressor's power, and that you know, sometimes they have to act sadistically in order to feel that power and to feel that you know, they're not equal to those who are oppressed. So yeah, so like in other words, it's like acting sadistically either through violence or even, you know, name calling or something like that, and you can definitely see that in society as well. And so I think a lot of these songs are kind of, you know, trying to explain what they've seen and trying to explain, you know, why it is how it is and why those problems, the root of all those problems, you know.
Back to the idea of back to the idea
yeah, and then just like, you know, explaining like how some people have power. And so,
okay. Back to the idea as the MC as a witness, there you go.
Yeah,
exactly. Okay.
Yes, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
And then after that, we talked about MC as the challenger, and kind of like asking why that inequality exists in society. So we listened to Why by Jada. Yeah, so that song was also very challenging, or he was challenging, his song wasn't challenging. You know, he was challenging society, he was challenging a lot of different things. You know, like, why do people live that way? Why are our desires a certain thing? You know, why would we rather live in a way that damages ourselves rather than to be good to ourselves, kind of, in a way? You know, he talks about his pain in living within that system, and kind of like his experience being oppressed by that society or by, you know, that power, where he says why they gotta do him like that. Like he talks about he talks about all of the inequality that he's experienced and witnessed as well. And he's like, why are they doing this to me? And I tried to make it right, but
it kind of reminds me of last week of how we were talking about how some songs have more of like a accusatory thing, and other ones were just like really passive, like waiting for something to come along and fix it. This kind of, to me, falls under that. So he's asking all these questions, why? But he's not really giving any solutions to it.
yeah.
And he's kind of like taking himself a victim. And he called, you know, there's a sense of accusation, you know, that he doesn't give any solutions to the problems either. Like he's presenting in this one. That was interesting.
And then we did talk about civil disobedience, which was Thoreau. And you know, an active refusal to disobey demands from the government. And Thoreau like had stopped paying his taxes, and he encouraged everyone else to do the same, even if they went to jail for it. And he believed that if the society is doing something wrong, we shouldn't keep following that rule until it is eliminated, but we should immediately stop following it. And he believed that the government is more harmful than helpful.
Agent of corruption and destruction.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and democracy is not a cure of that. He believed that democracy does not work in our society, and that the conscience is not inferior to the will of the political body. And like, for example, she talked about that serving justice or serving your own country by thinking that you're doing justice to them, like for example joining the military, is not necessarily, you know, just because you're doing something wrong under that excuse doesn't mean that it's okay for you to do that.
Yeah, I don't know if it was her who was the example or I thought it myself, but the example of the Holocaust, and all the officers like during the Nuremberg trials, like in history of Ukraine.
Yeah.
You know, saying all officers following orders. Thoreau has a lot to say about that. So, you know, you're responsible for your own morals.
Yeah.
You know, that whatever you do, whether it is following orders or not, you have the responsibility to say no to what you do. I kind of bring that back to the first week as well about self-reliance, you know, like relying on yourself to do what you think is right, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, like self-reliance and like you're responsible for yourself and you have to maintain your own conscience. And then also in civil disobedience is that, you know, back to the taxes thing, like paying taxes is a way to threaten the society and tell them that they're failing. And he also thought that if you are paying taxes into that society, then you're failing as a citizen. And yeah, and then you shouldn't just wait for the opportunity to vote for it, but you should, you should take a stance, like for example, not paying taxes anymore, to express that they're doing something wrong. He thought that voting didn't really help.
You actively persuade yourself not the system.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, if you're just waiting to make a change through the system, you're not really going to get anywhere because the system is already corrupted. And if you're trying to work within a corrupted system, you're not going to get anywhere. The system is created, to keep people oppressed. So why would you try to work within the system?
Yeah. And that movement, or that I say civil disobedience, did encourage people later on to start civil disobedience movement. And then we listen to Truth Decay by Public Enemy. And again, this song was MC as a challenger. He does challenge the system, and he challenges the oppressor. That he wants the truth.
I found the song really interesting because, well, there's other songs too, like to say people in the correct and they're doing it, it's kind of really different. Just like, again, through social media. Like saying you're jealous of somebody else, so you're gonna pick on that person because you want something new. That's like,
Yeah, and you're not realizing that you're doing the oppressing, and also just sometimes kind of making excuses for all of these things. For example, that's normal, that everyone else is doing, or using the excuse of doing it for your country. Is also, not just according to the law.
There's a big theme this week with the military, isn't there? It's a very big, I don't know if I want to call it an issue. It's a really big entity, I guess, in our society that people don't really realize is something that's not necessarily positive. Because there's all this rhetoric going around, about support our troops and you're sacrificing blah blah blah. All the times they are kind of made to do it in a way. Like they have the choice obviously to join or not, but then some of them feel like they have. Okay, so I'm gonna use my work as an example. I work with high school students, and so part of my job is to do academic advice. And I have to ask them, okay, so what do you want to do after high school? Blah blah. And a lot of them say the military, and I'm always really intrigued as to. I ask them, why do you want to? Why? I'm not trying to patronize you. I really want to know why do you want to do that? Like, oh, because it's something good to do. Like they have all these images in their head about how it's something honorable.
Yeah.
And a lot of these students, by the way, are students who are not very high achieving. They don't have the best grades. They don't think college is an option. And they go, the military is an honorable thing to do. It's something their parents will be proud of. Someone actually said that. Their parents will be proud of me.
Do they think that it'll help them get somewhere or get?
There's not even that.
I think it's something to offer to that gets in this.
It's a passageway for them.
Success in a way.
It's an achievement, and it's easier than going to college, and they think they'll succeed better there than in college because they don't think they can do college because either they don't think they can afford it, they don't think they can get in, they don't think they can, once they're in, that they will succeed. And so they just see it as this option. It's just it's one of the best options for them. It's something where they're not necessarily going to school, but they're still making their family proud. And I'm always just baffled, and I never know what to say to them. I'm like, oh, well, have you considered this? Or what about after the military? You can still go to college. And we're just really? And I'm like, yes. It's mind-blowing to me. It is. So in my opinion, I think the military is something, the whole military industrial complex is something that we really need to take a look at. I mean, if you look at the spending we have, I was kind of getting away from philosophy, but I know, as we look at the amount of spending we have on the military, no one bats an eye, and we look at how much we spend on education, how much we spend on healthcare, and it's just these are healthcare, education, those are rights, the right to be, to be able to pursue what you want, which is an education, the right to, be healthy, and we don't fund that as much as we do the military. It's just baffling.
Yeah, no,
I don't understand it. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of.
And I think that's another way of oppression is that that's the only passageway that you give those kids, and that's the only thing that they see, and that's the only way that they feel like they can find freedom, and they don't have freedom because that's the only thing that they see And only those who are more privileged are like, oh, I can do the military, I can do this, I can go to school. Like others don't have that freedom to have that choice. And yeah, no, I totally agree. And
it's a mask. It's a mask. It's a like a fake choice. Like they make it seem like a choice. It's really they make the option that they don't really have another option.
Yeah, no,
and
they
it's
really
just,
don't.
And it's just another way to keep them down. You know, like oh, here's like your fake option for you now. You know, like we'll take it and work for us kind of thing. Work for something you probably don't even believe in. Like it's just another way to oppress these 18-year-olds just coming out of high school.
Yeah, I don't want to say like the freedom for countries. I'm like you're gonna be oppressed or you're gonna be under somebody. You're gonna get yelled at to what you're doing. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're fighting for freedom, but you're not necessarily freedom. You know, and I love living in this country as much as the next person. You know, I do consider myself patriotic, but at the same time, it's just like there's a lot of countries in this country as far as the military and these ideas that we give these kids about freedom and freedom.
What the government is doing.
Right. Yeah. Nobody knows. Nobody here in this country actually knows what freedom is. I do not think so.
It's like how back with like the flow, right? With segregation. Okay, they segregated it, but there still wasn't any policies for like other racial groups. They still had policies. So they were free, but not yet.
And that's like seen in a lot of movements. Like she did talk about that MLK had read her throughout civil disobedience, and that also inspired him. And that's something that you can see in a lot of movements is the government against the people, or the people against the government, challenging the government, challenging what they've experienced through the government, how they're being treated. Yeah, and then we talked about Shana do business first.
I like that song.
Me too.
Not only because, you know, I'm a woman and it spoke to me in that way, but also I feel like they were ahead of the curve. It was 1983 and they're rapping about these kind of things, and these are issues that I'm hearing now, like especially like now that I'm in college, like, oh, like no slut shaming and that kind of thing. That's what I had never thought of those concepts in high school, you know, like, so that's something new to me in college, especially like lately this couple of years, it's been a big thing. You know, it's been kind of like I don't know if it's like a new feminist movement of some sort, but it's becoming a big thing in the community, like not don't slut shame, like love yourself and that kind of thing.
This song is really a big deal or something.
Your second was in this, no, third one? It's third grade, isn't it? Isn't third grade?
I think it's 30, yeah.
Yeah, the second one is in, yeah. It definitely coincides with the third grade thing.
No, I found it interesting. There was something about I took a woman in music class.
I took that class.
You took that class?
I took that class.
And they're talking about some type of like they didn't even go to.
This song was awesome.
Alright. No, the woman in music class. Like how they didn't go to one of the award shows because I think it was like had to do with like the standards they had to do. So like they were being oppressed because they were so
out there. Yeah. And so like verbal about I don't know verbal is the right word, verbal about, you know, their society standards and how they didn't agree with them and stuff. Yeah,
that's why they didn't go because they didn't agree with something.
Oh yeah, they didn't receive their award. That's what it was. They won something. They
didn't go because
yeah. They have some people have a really good history with like their empowerment stuff. Really like
they're like activists.
They're very much not willing to take part in in the oppression of other girls. You know, they talk a lot about how there was this one line where what's the third? Yeah, it's like around here somewhere. I sure you're not like you treat someone because she's with her and nothing to do with me. Hold your tongue tightly, we should be like when you're talking about this and this stress inside. It's kind of just like, you know, I'm not gonna what you think of me is not gonna let me it's not gonna stop me from doing whatever I want kind of thing. And I'm not gonna take your system, all your double standards and stuff over here. But your double standards don't mean shit to me. You're not gonna take your double standards what society thinks is right for me, and I'm not gonna take that and listen to it. I'm gonna do my own thing.
I just like how the issues that they mentioned in their song are still existent.
I know.
I think they're more dominant now.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially like the younger generation.
The younger generation, because they've grown up with all this technology on them, it's a definite big presence of the media. More. You know, I know we grew up with that too, but this younger generation, they grew up with more so, and so they have all these ideas in their head, you know, just like we did about what we should do, what we should look like, what kind of women we should be, and it's an even. You're right. It's an even more pressing issue now. For sure.
Well, yeah, and then that does go along with, like, you know, she does say, like, it's none of your business, just challenging society for the way that they view people, and again, that goes along with, you know, naming and kind of labeling people as, you know, slut or criminalizing them in a way, and that goes along with a lot of different contexts, and that it's really reinforced by the way that, you know, we do it to each other, and then in that song it kind of also went along with the concept of horizontal violence, where, you know, women do it to each other in a sense. It's not necessarily the oppressor to the oppressee, but also towards each other, you know, to indirectly or to directly attack those of your own, you know, the same people that are being oppressed. And then we watched Hip Hop versus America, and that did talk about criminality again.
One thing I liked about this song too is it brought into light a lot of conflicts between different places. So like women versus women, women versus men, women versus society, youth versus different things. Or women versus societal labels, you know, that kind of thing as well. I also I brought to mind again for, you know, being unaware that living this oppression, that, you know, that being called a slut, you know, having this double standards opposed to labels, that is a form of oppression, and that sometimes, you know, women are aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
What I found interesting about this one is when Tina or Nella was talking, and she was like, I think, yeah, we grew up with that. People choose what they want to do. They have no choice. I don't know that it depends if they're oppressed or not, but I like how he said it's like, yeah, we grew up with gangster music, but we didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, like that
He was
never.
too.
Yeah,
But
like
it was
that never
passive.
made me want to go like break down the even though that was around him and that's what he was watching and seeing in his life. And I think Nelly was the one that said like his uncle was doing it and like his friends and stuff like that. Yeah, and then we talked about Dostoevsky as well, and that the freedom of choice is what makes us individuals, and when we don't have choice, that's what dehumanizes us, and that's what empowers the oppressors rather than the oppressees, or over the oppressees.
There's one little tiny thing I didn't want to point out about the reading. Towards the end of the piece, when he's starting to talk about for them, the new man or woman themselves become oppressors, or the vision of the new man or woman is individualistic because of their definition of oppressor. They have no conscious of themselves as persons or members of class path. Basically saying, you know, that the thing to look up to is the oppressed. The people who are oppressed look up to the oppressors and they try to emulate them, which is why it keeps coming a cycle. I related that back to the American dream, actually. The idea, you know, that we're supposed to look for something better than ourselves, or look up to something better. I think he's definitely, I mean, I don't really know when this was written. Oh, okay, so 1968. So yeah, I can definitely see him trying to make a point about the American dream. And I saw that in another song as well. I saw that in, I want to say it was, oh, right here, Immoral Technique. Women's Conscious Constructive American Dreams.
Yeah.
I just see this whole like critique about what America, our society, is
supposed to be about,
what we're supposed to be aspiring to, and it's just
actually doing.
And it's just leading into the cycle.
Yeah, and I think that was his point. Like, to be able to do something, do not follow the person you or.
And that was totally what the civil disobedience was about. Yeah. And the MLK movement was, don't follow that.
Yeah.
And to challenge that, and then, you know, that if you are following that, then you're as much at fault as the oppressor. Yeah, okay, and then last thing we talked about MC as a champion, and then we listened to World by The Far Side. Let's see. So yeah, you know, we talked about that, he does kind of critique the way that people live. He talks about, you know, like, what we, again, like, our desires for wealth and to, you know, go to heaven and to be seen, you know, well in God's eyes. And then he talks about that he's not, you know, he's like, that basically he's not about that. And he wants freedom, he wants to, you know, be for love and for peace.
opinion, like a common thing. What we really need is like humanization, and not that prioritize what we're doing constantly.
Absolutely. I agree. And that is both after my opinion, but two goals on last week as well. He's a challenger there too, and he's also a witness throughout his experience growing up in Turkey. Yeah, that definitely just reminded me of that. But yeah, I think, the general theme of this week's lecture was, that those who are growing up in marginalized communities should be challenging and should be critical of their society, and that they should, question it, like you said, and that they should change it as best as they can, even if it means that they go to jail or anything like that. They should give the kind of cause that they're not okay with that, and that we should challenge those who lead the process. I think that was a really important concept for all of these.
But not becoming a president.
Yes. Do not settle past